Run Pure Sports, swing for the fences on a Thursday evening. Daytime slate is close to, it's not even close to wrapping up. We got a couple of games in progress. The game in Sacramento, just a little bit, right about halfway through, but feels like the first time in at least 3 weeks that we've had a decent slate to talk about on a Thursday night. Should have been 5 games, but whether in New England, as one would expect this time of year, not so good. That game was supposed to be in Boston, right, DC? I think that's where it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so that got banged, as our buddy Boynton likes to say. One banged game leaves us with a 4-game slate, early slate time, 6:45 here this evening. But at least, DC, like I said, 4 games, a slate to talk about, some decent prizes on our partner DraftKings, and we'll get into breaking these games down and seeing where there's an edge. Really interesting slate today, DC. I looked at it and I said, well, man, all these pitching prices, you know, could you play Germán Marquez? Turns out you could play Germán Marquez at 4,500. Eovaldi pitched pretty well. And, of course, Carlos Rodon was outstanding once again. And a game in Toronto goes into extras. And, you know, it seems like I remember you guys, because I couldn't play yesterday because I was in between some family obligations and then traveling back home. And Steve was talking about, unless you had 45% on Isaac Paredes with a double down. And here we are on today's slate, and it's Gavin Sheets. I mean, Gavin Sheets, the only player in the early window who scored well. It looks like Brent Rooker is doing some damage here in the late going, which is good for my lineups. But how are you, DC? What's going on?
I'm doing well. Actually got a little bit of a sweat going on here on the early slate. So, of course, wouldn't you know, I need the my favorite team, the paste-eating Rockies, to come through to get me to the top. So I'm hoping I need just a couple more hits here, but we'll see. But yeah, 4-game slate. We lost, of course, Baltimore and Boston. And Steve's always complaining about whenever any good chalk hitter goes off, he's always complaining. You know why that is, Steve? Because you pay up for pitching every single slate, and you know that's what happens. We get to play the good chalk hitters in our lineup. So yeah, Steve, he's like, you've been there, JT, when he texts us, Shohei Ohtani going off for absolutely no reason. Well, how about the reason if he's the best baseball player to ever walk planet Earth is a pretty good reason why Shohei Ohtani might have a good game. Anyway,
so yesterday was sort of, and you know, you live vicariously through your buddies when they're playing and you're not. And so I went into Discord earlier in the day yesterday because I was sitting around and I was waiting for some things to happen, and I'm like, okay, and I'm looking and I see you text that you were going to play the Astros for the first time in a while, and you said, of course, cue up Todd Bradley career game. And it kind of worked out because Bradley actually pitched fairly well, gave up a couple of bombs, but then Paredes gets the second home run, and then I see Boynton in there talking about how the Paredes chalk was destroying all of his teams. And then so I drive home. I was in South Carolina. I come home. I get home last night. I got home around 9, and there's a little pizza place by my house. I'm not going to say it because if C. McDonald is on here, he'll stalk me. I'm nervous about that. But so I go there, and I said, hey, can you put on MLB Network? It was the end of the Mets game. And because Alex Cora pulled Garrett Crochet at 85 pitches, I was kind of hoping they would lose just because it was such a dumb thing to do at that point in the game. And here come the text from Steve about, I don't even remember what he texted about, what he was texting about last night. It was, I guess, how smoothly or how pure Randy Vasquez was running or something like that. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the Jays explode. So he was sad, angry, in disbelief. And then all of a sudden he's in Discord with the Santander or whoever it was, Varsho, exclamation point. And I'm like, you get the full emotional range.
Have you ever?
And with the text from Steve.
Yeah, and normally once the game, I'm in Discord all the time in the morning, or just talking baseball, bullshitting, whatever. TT stacks, of course, got to be involved in that. But once the actual games start, and it's just it becomes a little bit of a tilt fest. And Steve's in there every day tilting. I go in there I don't know if you've noticed, JT, maybe once a month. I decide I'm going to tilt every single pitch on this goddamn slate. So I'm typing like one batter in, the pitcher's dead, like the messages are coming in. I think people realize when I do it, like for the first time, in a month, how absurd it looks to just tilt like the entire slate.
But it doesn't change their behavior, surprisingly. It's not motivation enough to be like, wow, this is really dumb and annoying.
I think when it's happening, they're like, oh man, maybe that is kind of weird. But by the time the next day starts and the new games are going, you got to get back to the tilt.
Second inning last night, because like I said, so I'm home last night. I hadn't played it. I'm just watching the games. And second inning last night, someone says Angel Stack's dead. And like, of course, the Angels actually scored a bunch of runs after that, I think.
They hit like 6 home runs.
10-5 last night. So anyway, Joe A is in here saying it's tilting, stacking the Phillies 2 days in a row. That's what you get for playing 7K hitters. No, just kidding. It is pretty tilting when the team does not come through in cores. And then Venomous, he is full of excitement this evening. He says that the boys yesterday gave him the right game to target, and he got first place on FanDuel for 10K. So Venomous, congrats to you. Rance is in here, Jacob Stubbs, Brittany, Daniel, Joe Ruff. Nah, we don't care about Joe Ruff, but just kidding, Joe Ruff. All right, let's get into these games, DC. 4 games, a couple of decent contests on, once again, our partner DraftKings. And we'll start in Detroit. Who doesn't like to start in Detroit, DC? We've got the Guardians playing the Tigers. Coolish weather, 50 degrees in Detroit, which seems like it's the temperature all the time. Tanner Bybee at 7,800, and then Jack Flaherty at 8,300. Tigers coming off a nice series in St. Louis. Flaherty looking like he's going to be one of the more popular pitching options. He had a 3-4 game stretch that wasn't so good. Of course, coincided with a trip out to the West Coast, but rebounded nicely last start. I believe it was against the Blue Jays. Tanner Bybee, his peripheral numbers suggest that maybe he should be getting somewhat better results, but they haven't been there yet. What are your thoughts here on this first game?
Yeah, so obviously on a 4-game slate, right, we don't have many options to choose from. And there's a few pitchers on the slate that I really don't want to play. So Bybee and Jack Flaherty, I mean, they're right near the top of the list for me. I think 2 and 3 on my list of preferred plays on DraftKings at their prices. To me, JT, I mean, they're both fairly or maybe a little underpriced for their talent level. 8,300 Flaherty, I think, is more than fair for his track record. And honestly, the same thing for Tanner Bybee. I know the results this year haven't been great. Honestly, haven't played a lot of Tanner Bybee, but I do think these are 2 pretty good pitchers in a pretty good place to pitch, right? A big, spacious ballpark in Detroit with cool weather. And I think, for the most part, decent matchups. There are some dangerous bats in here for both these pitchers, right? Like Flaherty going up against, Ramirez and Manzardo, but it's not bad at all. And then Bybee, I do like some of the Tigers lefties in particular. Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, I think a pretty good spot for them. But I mean, I think if you're looking for just safety, point per dollar, safety-wise pitching, these 2 guys kind of right at the top for me. I think that'll be reflected in ownership, but I do think it's kind of hard to get away from that on a smaller slate where I really only think there's, 4 or 5 pitchers in play at all. So these 2 guys near the top of my list, I kind of went over the individual bats that I like. And, I talk about this a lot, but on a shorter slate, I'm way more concerned about trying to pick out the boom games than I am about trying to get the exact right stack. So especially the lefty power on both sides is kind of where I'm looking for hitters in this game.
All right, fair enough there. We'll move on to the next game. And outside of the game that is not being played, looks like weather not going to be a major issue on this slate. There is this game in Pittsburgh that may have a little bit of rain around, but it's the Brewers heading into Pittsburgh to play the Pirates. Aaron Savali making his return from the injured list. He is 7K. Mike Burrows A rookie who is not Bubba Chandler is going to be starting for the Pirates. He is 6,200 DC. His numbers in AAA, okay, 2.5 ERA. Seems like he could be a league average arm here, but he's making his major league debut against a team that we pick on with some of the more heavier strikeout percentage guys against the Brewers, but I don't know if we want to use Mike Burrows here in this spot. What are your thoughts here on the Pirates and the Brewers?
Yeah, I'll talk about Burrows. Where did you end up on Bybee versus Flaherty, or maybe playing both? Because I think it's a close call between the two of them, and I'm sure some people are going to make that choice. There's
not a ton here that I love, right? And so you've got, I think when you look at Flaherty and Bybee, and that's why I mentioned his underlying statistics, suggests that maybe his results are just a little bit of bad luck. Yeah. He's not getting lucky in terms of run prevention. I think 60-something% left on base, a very high average on batted balls in play, and you get Detroit coming off of facing some of the more beatable pitchers in the Cardinals rotation, and maybe a little bit obviously weather here, not so great. So I lean right now. Bobby and Flaherty are my top two pitchers.
Yeah, makes sense. Getting over to Brewers and Pirates. So Savale going for the Brewers at 7K. I think he was only up to like 60 pitches his last time out. He was not a pitcher that we rostered in DFS, hardly at all last year. I don't think Savale, outside of if you just, on a shorter slate, right? You need a cheap guy. You play some Savale, but not a really exciting option. I do think he's going to get some ownership, Savale. Pulling that up now. Do you have the ownership up on pitching?
I didn't see a heavy amount for Savale. I'll take
20%. I'm seeing from Saber.
Yeah, that's high. I think that's high. But go on.
It might be high. It's too high, I think. So no Savale for me. I do like O'Neal Cruz quite a bit, and actually, the top of the Pirates lineup, I think, is all pretty good. Savale gives up a ton of home runs, almost 2 home runs per night over the last couple seasons. So, yeah, Cruz, McCutchen, Reynolds, Bart, Horwitz, I think, are all pretty good plays for the Pirates. Probably cut it off there. And then I actually like Burrows a little bit on this slate. Again, he's cheap, 6,200. He does appear to be, listen, they called him up instead of their big-time prospect. Burrows has kind of earned the shot to be in this rotation. He's pitched well this year. Strikeout numbers are good. I think he's going to try to be a long-term member of this rotation. I think he might be good enough to do it, JT. You can look at like the stuff numbers, location numbers, all that stuff for minor league players now too. And like you said, he does grade out. He looks like he should be, a number 3 type starter, which against the Brewers on this slate, pitching at home, I do think he's a pretty good play at 6,200. So I'm in on Burrows. Really, Burrows, Bybee, and Flaherty is kind of where I'm looking for my pitcher exposure today. I do think the Brewers are definitely a fine, stack to go against Burrows. He's still a rookie pitcher, but I do like Burrows as a play. And then, like I said, I really do like the top of that Pirates lineup quite a bit as well.
The Pirates are going to need this from Burrows. They're going to need that. They're going to need Bubba Chandler to be up there soon. Jared Jones, I believe it was yesterday, underwent elbow surgery, so he will miss the remainder of the season. Tough break there for the Pirates. We have some comments in the chat. Andy says, good evening. Steve is taking note of the fact that the Angels pitchers cannot stop walking in runs, which I am not all that upset about. DC may be upset about it because I did see one of his lineups earlier was in the top there, and that may not be good for him. Stacks looks like he's perhaps a Pittsburgh fan. He says it's raining like hell in Pitts right now, but there is a window between 8 and 11 that this game should get in between the Brewers and the Pirates. And then Steve Jones, the roof is almost never open in Houston. I don't know the answer to that question, but I would suspect that it's closed as it normally is. It's very rare that they open that roof for whatever reason. And then Stacks wants to play in Atlanta Stack, DC, so we'll go to that game next. It is the Braves at the Washington Nationals. Their game rained out last night, only playing one because it rained all day in the DC metro area, but they're going to have an opportunity to get this one in. AJ Smith-Shawver, who has been fantastic. He's now 9,800, though, against the Nats. Trevor Williams, 6,300. And as good as Smith-Shawver has been, that does come with a little bit of luck, DC. 167 average on batted balls in play. 88% of base runners that he has allowed have been left on base and not been able to score. And with his 24% strikeout rate and 11% walk rate, is it possible to play this game a little bit backwards, maybe get some shares of Trevor Williams and play the Nationals?
I don't know if I'm in on Trevor Williams, but I'm not crazy about the Braves either. I mean, I think they're a decent play. They've got to be against Williams, who's not very good, and a horrible Nationals bullpen. I assume they'll be very popular. The Braves will be. The prices are completely reasonable.
We're stacking on the slate once again for, as our friend Boynton likes to say, for no particular reason.
For no
reason why you would look.
In this case, I agree with our friend Boynton.
There is no reason why you would look at this Braves lineup and say this should be the most popular stack on the slate. Alex Verdugo, he's been okay, all right? Riley hasn't done much. Olsen will hit a home run a week, but that's about it. Yeah. Then you got the bottom of this lineup, Ozzie, Eli, Michael Harris, and Nick Allen. The best player of those four so far this season has been Eli White, DC. Yeah. I mean, for no particular reason.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but I will be lower on the Braves than the field, honestly. There are just other ways to go. I mean, I talked about like in the Pirates, I do think you can pick off bats, even against Flaherty and Bybee. I think the good hitters in that game will be lower owned than they should be. And then we get to the Nationals, who I do like quite a bit here, JT. I've been on AJ Smith-Shawver, honestly, for most of this run. And it's obviously been, really good, but it was oftentimes just because the other pitching options weren't great. And, I like the ownership and whatever it was. He's been on some smaller slates. I'm not totally bought in on Smith-Shawver. He's, in my opinion, way overpriced at 9,800. I don't think, just being honest, I don't think he's anywhere close to that level of talent of a pitcher. For sure, I think.
Against the Rockies, against the Pirates, against the Angels in a major league park, okay, I could get on board with that.
I mean, I think both Flaherty and Bybee are better pitchers than him, just kind of
right now, absolutely. Yep.
So, yeah, exactly. So, not that he's bad, but what I'm trying to say is at 9,800, and it looks like some decent ownership for Smith-Shawver, I'm jumping off today. I'm not playing any of him. Way prefer both Flaherty, Bybee, and even Mike Burrows. So I'm off of Smith-Shawver tonight. But I do like these Nationals bats, these lefty bats. I mean, Smith-Shawver, he's got a good fastball, but it's straight. He challenges hitters with it. And then his other best pitch is a splitter, which he has really, really bad control of it. He might fall behind and give up some hard, loud contact to some of these Nationals lefties. So Abrams, Wood, Nathaniel Lowe, really most of the hitters, I think, in this lineup are pretty good play. So I'm with you on that, JT. I do like this Nationals team as a contrarian stack.
I can get on board with Trevor Williams on this slate. His advanced metrics show, again, he's never going to be anything more than a 4-starter in Major League Baseball. But if Atlanta is going to be the top-owned slate, then and maybe I don't need him, but I think if he comes up in a couple of lineups, I'm not going to automatically cross him up. I guess that's the point I make about Trevor Williams. I'm not going to make it anything for him.
I made this point a lot, but the cheap, low-owned pitchers like Marquez today, I think are kind of always good plays because they get a chance, right? They get a chance to throw 90 pitches, and sometimes shit goes your way, So
yeah, absolutely, especially when no one's playing these guys, right?
Exactly, not as chalk, but when nobody's playing them, then
exactly. So a couple, we'll say Mighty Saint, Braves do. Albies 2 home runs. Albies hasn't hit 2 home runs since his when he was dreaming of playing in the major leagues. He did so once in his dream. That's the last time he's hit a ball hard. Ryan 60. He just destroyed Washington. He did. That means that this is not the first, second, and third time through the order, as Major League managers like to say, for A.J. Smith-Shawver this week. It will be the fourth, fifth, and sixth time through the order. And all you need to do is take a little bit of a look at how Major League Baseball teams look at analytics and see where they think the edge lies there in lineups 4 through 6.
By the way, did you get a chance to watch the Strider start?
No, I saw that he was popular, DC, and I got to be honest.
It was I think a short slate, like a turbo slate or something. I didn't even play it.
It would have been popular, I think, because he was like 8K or something, right? I mean, we're going to talk about another one of these pictures too coming up, and it's not the same thing because he doesn't have the name.
I didn't think he looked good. I think he pitches again.
Yeah.
Whenever it is, I'm going to be in on some stacks against Strider. I mean, I want him to be good, but it didn't look good to me.
The velocity is 4 miles down.
Wait,
I mean, the velocity is 4 to 6, right? And Derek Ringer is in here saying he looked rusty. Rusty is one thing. Rusty is instead of dotting the corner 99, it's 3 inches outside, right? That's rusty. Rusty isn't 92 to 94 from a pitcher that used to throw 98 to 101.
He's a power pitcher. He's always been a power pitcher. If you take the power away from him, it's not going to go well, I don't think.
And that doesn't mean, DC, that he won't get that back. It doesn't mean that, maybe 6 months. And I think he can be – he's a very smart guy. I think he can be a good major league pitcher, even if his velocity's decreased a little bit. But, man, 92, 94 is nothing for these guys.
And I think if it does come up, JT, I do think it'll be gradually, right? I don't think he's going to go out there next time and be throwing 99. I just don't see that.
No.
So, I feel pretty safe that in the meantime, he's going to have some rough performances, I think.
Yeah, that's something that arm strength is going to have to be built back up. And I think you're looking at, can he give you 5 to 6 innings the rest of this season, build up that arm strength over the winter, and come back maybe fully healthy next spring training? Again, you worry, DC, because this is his second or third. I think this may have been the brace surgery, so that elbow's got some miles on it, and you're kind of wondering how much more he's going to get out of it. We hope he gets a lot more out of it.
He could get it back, but the most likely outcome is it's not coming all the way back for Spencer Strider.
Yep. Exactly. A lot of guys in here think the Braves are due, DC. I mean, it's going to be June. It's going to be June, and I think the thought process, and obviously I've got my Atlanta shirt on. I got a bunch of Braves bobbleheads behind me. I follow the team pretty closely. DC, all last season, we kept thinking we were going to see at some point the team from 23 return. We were thinking, hey, this team's got to hit, right? This team's got to hit. This team has been the same team for a season and a half now. I mean, it's now looking more and more like that team of 23 that scored, 15 runs once a week. Total and complete aberration. Total outlier results.
Yeah, they do get Acuna back, I think, tomorrow. So he's that would be how they could, I think, kind of resurrect. If Acuna, I don't really expect him to be himself right off the bat, but it is one possibility that he just comes in and starts crushing. If that happened, I wouldn't be surprised if this team kind of got their mojo back a little bit.
If that happens, obviously, it helps when the guy at the top of the lineup is either giving you an early lead or getting on base for the guys below. Again, we'll see what happens there. Uncle T is in here saying to have some faith. I'm just keeping it real, Uncle T. Just keeping it real. All right. Riles says that his wife is due to cook a good meal as well. So, Riles, I would wager that your wife will cook a good meal sometime before the Braves score 15 runs again. So I'd be willing to make that bet. All right. Let's get and if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in here. We've got we've got some time here. Obviously, we only have 4 games, but we'll get to the last game, and then we'll talk a little bit about our favorite stacks off the chalk stacks. Nice Kevin is homeless if Drake Baldwin doesn't go yard. Baldwin, the one guy in this lineup that seems to be able to do it consistently. So at least for now, until the league adjusts. Next game, last game, DC. Seattle Mariners in Houston. George Kirby making his return from the injured list. He's 8,800. He faces off against Lance McCullers. And McCullers looks like a guy who not only is rusty, but also may have forgotten how to pitch completely. 6,500 here. And the projection systems, they must be, I mean, some of the projections I see on McCullers, these must be like 5-year averages, the way they think that his projections are stated. I'm like, it's been a long time since Lance McCullers should be the top owned guy on a slate. He is just 6,500 here, but man, against this Mariners offense, the way that he's looked, and it's not good. We're talking about a 13-14% strikeout rate to go along with a 15% walk rate. Just has not looked good at all. What are your thoughts here on the Mariners and the Astros?
1,000,000% with you on McCullers. Seattle, my favorite stack by far. Texas was last time too. A little bit disappointing, that one. I mean, it wasn't terrible. 2 runs, 4 hits over 4 innings. But like I'll say the same things I did last time, whenever that slate was. I think it might have been Sunday. I'm not sure, but he just doesn't, like, even in his prime, which was many, many injuries ago and many years ago now. Like, he was a pitcher who had good stuff and could miss bats, but he would still be all over the place, walk dudes, didn't go deep into games. Now, after multiple surgeries, I can't even name all the injuries he's had. It's been so many. He's 31 years old. His stuff is not as good, and the control is even worse, like it is for a lot of these pitchers coming back from injury. Spencer Strider, who we just talked about, it's tough to come back from long-term injury. I'm looking at these numbers for McCullers, and listen, he could flip the switch, and maybe he has his command today. But if he pitches like he's been pitching, it means he's behind every hitter. It's 2-0, it's 3-1. And then he's got to come in with a really mediocre fastball to the Seattle hitters who've got a lot of power up and down the lineup. He's not great at holding runners, and a pretty tired Houston pen behind him. So I absolutely love Seattle. I do have, playing 30 lineups, I'll have 5 or 10% McCullers just because I think the strikeouts could be there if he somehow finds his command, but not going higher than that with him. And I'll be rooting for a big Mariners game for sure.
Like, if you need a pitcher in the 6K range, DC, Trevor Williams is right there.
Well, I like Burrows by far the best of the 6K.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And what about George Kirby? I'm not at 8,800 with the way the Mariners have managed the likes of Brian Wu, and Bryce Miller when they've come back from injury. I'm not expecting a long leash here for George Kirby. But any interest in Kirby or the Astros?
Not at 8,800. I mean, he hasn't pitched the entire season. Yeah. It's tough, you're facing a team that's been facing major league pitching all year. And
they do come out of Tampa Bay. I mean,
yeah, fair enough. But like you said, the Mariners are going to be cautious with this guy. I mean, 75 pitches would be my guess. It's not a great strikeout matchup. He's not at home where he's been so much better over the course of his career. Yeah. It's hard to see a ton of upside for Kirby. He's not that big of a strikeout guy anyway. So, I mean, again, I just much prefer Flaherty and Bybee in that price range, enough to the extent where I just don't feel the need to play really any Kirby at all.
Okay. All right. Boys in here are having a fun time. Let's talk about, I mean, there's 8 pitchers. We've talked through them. I think people know where we stand on these guys. Give me, I guess for you, it's Burrows, your most off-the-chalk guy that you're going to use.
Yeah. Burrows, actually my highest owned pitcher. I'm playing a ton of Burrows.
Okay.
And then Flaherty, Bybee, and a little bit of McCullers. Those are my 4 pitchers tonight.
Okay. Like I said, I am going to play a little bit of Trevor Williams, but then it's going to be pretty much Bybee and Flaherty. We'll see who else sneaks in there when I start making lineups. It's not going to be Kirby. I don't know. I do find the Mariners interesting on the slate stacks. I do think that.
What about Houston against Kirby?
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't. Man, they probably more mini. And here's another thing, right? On these slates, not just the 4-gamers, like the full slates. I was talking with our buddy Sweet Travis Mangone earlier today.
How's he doing? I haven't talked to Travis in a while.
He's doing well. He's doing well. He was talking about MLB. He was kind of he wanted to chat a little bit about it. And I said, this has been a weird season for offensive production because, and I'm going to have to do probably sometime in the next 2 weeks, do a little bit of a deeper dive into why this is happening. I have some theories, but whether it's the unfortunate increase in the number of platoon options that are employed by managers now, right? I mean, even like the Mets.
You're gonna have to get Big T to do a joint research project with these. He's the platoon.
My conclusion is going to be the opposite. My conclusion is going to be the opposite on the platoon. Is like yesterday against Garrett Crochet, right? So the Mets start Tyrone Taylor. DC, what advantage do you get by starting Tyrone Taylor against Garrett Crochet? It just doesn't. So anyway,
what do you mean? You get the platoon advantage.
Right. All right. Anyway, you get a worse hitter, right? Like give your lefty an opportunity to see something. Maybe he'll put a ball in play. That's more than Taylor usually does. But the bottom line is 4-man stacks and 3-3-2s have been winning a ton of these contests simply because there's a lot of haves and have-nots in the game. We've talked about a couple of those teams now. But also the offensive productivity has been, it seems to me, more condensed on these teams where you're almost better off saying, let me see if I could pick the top 2 or 3 hitters from the teams that I like and get them in the same lineup.
Yeah, that's how I love to play. That's how I always play.
But I think it's more, not that it didn't work before. You've won with a 3-3-2. I won 100K with a 3-3-2 a few years ago. But now I think it's just more consistently happening. It's more consistently happening that you're seeing those types of stacks win. And again, something Steve said yesterday, you're dead without Paredes. Well, the rest of Houston really didn't do much. I think Dubon hit a home run, right? But if you just played a couple of Houston guys, if you played a couple of guys from 2 of the other teams that scored 6-7 runs, you're in much better shape than just doing 5-2s on those, especially on the smaller slate. So I'm not sure where I end up on this, but I do think that you can play 2 or 3 of these Houston guys. You don't have to go nuts and get in, like Cam Smith after a hot spring really hasn't hit anything. Caratini's actually been hitting pretty well recently. So I think they're fine. And answer your question. All right, so we've got your pictures. We've got my pictures. We both like Washington. Right? I mean, we both like Washington as a contrarian stack because the popular stacks here are going to be the Braves. Milwaukee, I think, is going to be pretty popular. And then Seattle may be fairly popular. Are you going to be playing some Pittsburgh, I think, right?
Yeah. Seattle, Nationals, and Pirates. My big 3. I will have some Braves mixed in there, the lefty power from Cleveland and Detroit, and then, a couple Houston bats here and there as well.
Okay. All right. And then, and like I think we both said, I'll be a little bit lower on the Braves. You'll be lower on the Braves. And that's it. All right. Rance wants to game stack Atlanta. Yeah, you could do that. I'm lower on the Braves, but
this will be the day the Braves put up 20 runs, JT. This is the day.
You know what? It could. We've been waiting for this for how long? We've been waiting for this for I don't know how long. And again, when the opposing pitcher is fairly cheap, not in love with it. All right. Core plays will be up. We'll have those up. They'll be going up. We got an hour until lock. So you've got time. We'll take that last question stacks here in a second. You got time to get your lineups in. Core plays will be up. People will be in Discord answering questions. You'll have the 3 max player pools. The Boom Report will be coming out. Our partner SaberSim will be updating projections. So go ahead and get over there. DC Stacks wants to know one lineup Who are you stacking?
Mariners. I think 5-man Mariners is the best stack tonight.
Mariners are a good stack. I like that. I like that call. I would also, if I was playing multiple contests, one lineup, I would sneak in some Nats. Joe Ruff, yeah, Core is on the site today. I know you're excited. For DC, I am JT. Good luck in your contest tonight.